everyone. So let us get into warm-up one. Warm-up one, we are going to take a bit of vintage footage from the Horse in Motion, which is a series of photographs taken by Eedweard Muybridge in the late 1800s. It's a very significant series because before his work, people weren't really sure what legs were doing when horses ran. It was going so quickly that the human eye is not great at capturing it. So with these photos, people were able to figure out how horses actually move. And as animators, this will be important for you as well. So we're going to draw over this vintage footage. So let me go ahead and pull up what we're going to be working on here. So we're doing our warm-up one. To start, let's go over to Files and download the GIF that's here under Horse in Motion and put that in your class folder. So I already have that downloaded. So go ahead and put that in your class folder, and let's open up Adobe Animate. Sorry. So Adobe Animate is a great program. It's been around for over 30 years and rarely modified, actually. I think they got it right from the start. It was formerly called Flash, so any of those video games you may have played on the computer called Flash games were made with Animate. It was originally for websites, but it was quickly sort of co-opted into animation. So when you open it up, you'll get this tutorial page, most likely. Feel free to do one of them. They're kind of fun, but I'm going to go ahead and skip. And you have this panel here when you start. So let us make a new file. And we have a couple options here. So across the top, you'll have presets that coincide with different publishing sources. So if you want to publish it to YouTube, you can probably find that here. We're going to just stay over here in character animation at full HD, which is 1920 by 1080p. And we're going to do frame rate of 12. 12 is on the slower end of animation, but since this is just going to be sort of an animated GIF, it doesn't need to go terribly fast. So let's go ahead and hit create. And now we get Animate in all her glory. So the center here is called the stage. So just like in a play, you're going to have your characters go across the stage. Anything you draw or import will appear here. Underneath we have the layer panel. Layers act just like transparent pieces of paper, like if you put pieces of vellum on top of each other. The topmost layer is the one that you will see above lower layers. You can change the visibility of a layer by clicking the eye, which will turn it off and on. You can do things like half opacity or guide layers, which will not export. So when we have some actual content in here, I'll show you what that's about. Over here we have the timeline. All of these numbers is the frame number. Each fraction of a second is depicted as a frame. So for us, we have 12 frames every second. And you'll see that the second mark is sort of denoted here. Above that, we have FPS, which stands for frames per second. So we're at 12. If you wanted to change that, you could go over to the right over here under your properties panel. And if you change that to say 24, it'll change over here as well. But I'm going to take that back to 12. Here you have the frame that you're actually standing on with your playhead. So the playhead is showing you what you are looking at specifically. Next to this we have our keyframe insertion. So a keyframe can either be blank like this one, which means it has no information in it, or it can be a keyframe with information on it, at which point it will fill in the dark like a black dot there. For holds, you can add frames that just maintain the same image, and this line here means that's the end of the hold. So when I bring content in, that'll make a little bit more sense. Let's leave this and let's actually import something so we can start to really understand what we have going on. So the first thing I want to do actually is save. So I'm going to hit save as, and I'm going to call this Swan Warm Up 1. And I am going to go ahead and put that in my class folder. I'm going to hit save. For me, I've already done this exercise, so I'm going to replace it for you. That should now come up. Okay, so we now have our name up here, so we know that this document is saved. Now let's go ahead to File, Import, Import to Stage, and let's find our GIF. So it's now imported, and you see there all of these new frames here. So I'm going to hit Command minus so I can see my whole composition. Command plus zooms in, Command minus zooms out. You also have a zoom tool over here if you'd like to do it with your zoom tool. And if we hit the play button down here, we can see what we've got. Now I actually want this to loop. So to loop something, let me go over here to the loop tool. And this little loop bar will appear above my timeline. So if I play this right now, I'm just going to loop those 2 frames. I actually want to loop my whole composition, so I'm just going to drag this over, and now I'm looping my entire animation. So I think that's already quite nice, but we haven't actually done anything, so why don't we start drawing? So over here we have our tools panel, and we have a bunch of options. So right now I'm using my selection tool. If you've ever used anything like Illustrator, you'll recognize the selection tools. We have the selection and subselection tool. When we draw with paths, I'll show you what the subselection tool does. But right now, just think of it as your clicker. Underneath we have some transformation tools to change dimensions or rotate things. All of that's possible with the free transform tool. We have a lasso tool to select specific parts. We have a fluid brush tool, and what I want to use right now is my classic brush tool. So when I click on my classic brush tool, I'm going to bring my playhead back to the front, and I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to lock this bottom layer so I don't accidentally draw in there, and always lock layers you're not drawing on in Adobe Animate because you will draw on the wrong layer if you don't. It's happened to everyone, so just believe me when I say lock your unused layers. Also, always name your layers. So I'm going to name this footage, and I'm going to name this one darker color. Okay. So as you can see, there's now this new opening here. So I have an empty frame that is holding. So that's fine. Let's draw. I now have this little green color, but I don't like it. So let's do... what color do I want? I'm gonna do this. There's so many choices. This is one of the hardest parts about digital art. I'm gonna do this maroon color. All right, so I'm here on my brush tool. You can also pick colors from the fill over here in the properties panel. If you don't like this little swatch thing, you can click on the rainbow circle and select a color like this. So maybe I want something a little bit more subtle, a little bit more brown. I'll hit OK on that. You can change the size of your brush from here. Or you can hit the close bracket or the open bracket to change the size. I would recommend using the hotkeys whenever you remember them, because it does really speed up the process. So right now I have a fairly small brush. It's this reddish brown color, and I'm going to go ahead and just start drawing. So something you may notice as you're drawing with this, and I'm going to keep this scratchy because that's sort of the style I'm going for. is that this is smoothing out your lines for you. So the reason it's doing that is this is actually a vector-based program. And what that means is that rather than checking or recording every little pixel that you put down, this is actually basically drawing graphs, and it's making anchors and lines in between those anchors. So the computer is going to naturally smooth some of these points out for you. And this is awesome most of the time. Every now and then, a little bit frustrating. But just remember that that is what the computer is doing. And it's whenever it autosaves, Adobe has this little glitch that it's going to delete whatever line you were working on. So the way around that is to just save often. So I think this is fine, but it was a little bit hard to see what I was doing while I was doing this. So I'm actually going to change the opacity of the layer underneath to be a little bit lower. So I'm going to hit Shift and I'm going to click on the eye, and that's lowered the opacity of that layer to 50%. Don't worry, I'll put it back to normal when we export this, but for now, I want to be able to see what I'm doing. Now, if I were to play this, you see that that's holding. What I just drew is holding for the whole animation. And that's not what I want. I want to change this every time. So I'm going to go back to my first frame, and I'm going to hit period, which is the hotkey to move forward one frame. And then I'm going to auto insert a blank keyframe. So we'll see now that that has stopped it, so I only have one frame showing. It's exactly what I want. So now I'm going to start drawing in the same way on this layer. And if this style is not your cup of tea, you can absolutely like fill this in solid or whatever you want to do. But don't get too lost in the reeds with rendering right now. What we're trying to do is learn a little bit about motion, a little bit about this program, and we're actually going to just sort of embrace the process here. So what I hope you learn in this warm-up is that while animation is a good amount of work, it's kind of easy. It's easy once you're willing to do the work. So let's hit period one more time and put in another blank keyframe and do it again. Looks like. That's not bad. Let's turn the opacity back on. All right, I think this is pretty cool, but I think it needs some highlights. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock this layer, and I'm gonna add a new layer, call this lighter color. And let's go ahead and pick a color for that. Let's see, maybe something even brighter. Let's do something in like the yellow range. Something like that. All right, let's see what this looks like here. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm gonna make this line a little bit thinner because it's gonna be kind of where the light is hitting everybody. I think I want the light coming from over here. And it doesn't have to be. I can also do it for like motion. Oh, I started on the wrong frame. Let's go back to this frame. Oop. And if you're sort of curious about how these things are interacting in time, like what kind of motion I'm creating here, I want to be able to see the next frame. You can use onion skins. So your onion skin is right here, and it will show a range above your timeline. So you can reduce the number of frames within that range. I usually just like to look one frame forward and one frame back. And what you've drawn on the next layer will appear in the color there. So we have green and blue here. I'm going to turn this off for now, but just so you know, it's there if there's anything you're wanting to check. This will become more important later in the course when we start drawing our motion a little bit more intentionally. But I don't know that I like these marks here. Get rid of those. Yeah, go like that. B for brush. Something like that. Move forward. This looks like. That's quite pretty. So, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and export it. I want to show you two different ways of exporting it. So, one is to export it just like this, so it will look like this when it's done. So, if you want to do that, you'll go to File, Export, Export Animated GIF, and we're gonna give it a name. Oh no, sorry. That's the name of the preset, which we don't need. Go ahead and check and make sure the looping is forever, and that this says 1920 and this says 1080p. And then go ahead and hit save. and you'll get this pop-up window. Make sure you like where it's going and hit save. And now you have a GIF that if I open that up, it is here, and you may need to open it up with the internet to actually get it to play for you. But there's your GIF. Now, if you want to try exporting it without the background and see if you like that, go ahead and go down to your footage layer, right-click on that, and click Guide. Now when you export this, let's go ahead and do it. File, export animated GIF. The background will no longer export, so I'm going to save that and save that as no background. Save that, and we can take a look at that one. That's sort of interesting too. So I hope you enjoyed that. You don't have to take that exact approach if you don't want to. You can definitely do solid shapes if you like, but the key is to use the existing footage as your guide to create your first rotoscoped animation. So when you're happy, go ahead and turn your animated GIF in. Thanks so much. See you next time.